Commander Rilak considered the idea. It's risky, but it could work. The Romulans won't expect us to engage them in such a dangerous environment. General Xara added, we should also prepare the planet's defenses. We need to fortify our positions and ensure that our ground forces are ready for the inevitable invasion. The plan was set. The Coalition's fleet would position itself near the asteroid field, drawing the Romulans into a deadly trap. Meanwhile, the ground forces would dig in and prepare for the coming assault. As the Coalition forces prepared for battle, the tension in the air was palpable. Eugene knew that this battle could determine the fate of the rebellion. If they won, the Romulan Empire would be dealt a crippling blow. But if they lost, the Coalition's hopes for freedom could be extinguished. The Romulan fleet arrived at Talaris sooner than expected, its massive warships blotting out the stars as they descended upon the planet. The Coalition's fleet, hidden within the asteroid field, waited for the right moment to strike. Eugene watched from the bridge of his ship as the Romulan fleet moved closer. Hold steady, he ordered his crew. Wait for them to enter the field. The Romulans, eager to crush the rebellion, took the bait. Their ships entered the asteroid field, unaware of the danger that awaited them. As they navigated the treacherous terrain, the Coalition's fleet sprang into action. Using the asteroids as cover, the Coalition ships launched a series of surprise attacks on the Romulan fleet. The Romulans, caught off guard, struggled to respond. The Coalition's hit-and-run tactics were devastatingly effective, and the Romulan fleet began to falter. But the Romulans were not easily defeated. Their commanders quickly adapted to the situation, ordering their ships to spread out and flush the Coalition forces from the asteroid field. The battle quickly devolved into a chaotic, close-quarters melee, with ships from both sides weaving between the asteroids as they exchanged fire. Eugene's ship was at the center of the action, dodging enemy fire while delivering punishing blows to the Romulan ships. But the battle was far from over. Despite the Coalition's initial success, the Romulan fleet's sheer numbers began to take their toll. On the planet's surface, the situation was equally dire. The Romulans had launched a massive ground invasion, overwhelming the Coalition's defenses. Eugene's team, leading the ground forces, fought fiercely to hold their positions, but the Romulan soldiers were relentless. As the battle raged, Eugene knew that the Coalition was running out of time. They needed to turn the tide, or all would be lost. But just as hope began to fade, a message came through from one of the Coalition's spies within the Romulan Empire. The message contained crucial information about the Romulan fleet's command structure. The Romulans had placed all of their fleet's command functions under a single flagship, a massive dreadnought that was coordinating the entire battle. If the Coalition could take out that flagship, the Romulan fleet would be thrown into chaos. Eugene immediately relayed this information to the Coalition's leadership. "We need to take out that dreadnought," he said urgently. "It's the key to their entire operation. If we can destroy it, the rest of their fleet will be left without direction." Commander Rilak agreed. "It's a long shot, but it's our best chance. We'll need to send a strike team to board the dreadnought and disable its command systems from within." Eugene volunteered his team for the mission. It was a dangerous assignment, but they were the best suited for the job. They would infiltrate the Romulan flagship, disable its command systems, and escape before the ship could retaliate. The strike team launched from Eugene's ship, slipping through the chaos of the battle to approach the dreadnought. Using cloaking technology and stolen Romulan codes, they managed to board the ship undetected. Once inside, they moved quickly, making their way to the ship's command center. The corridors were heavily guarded, but the team's experience and skill allowed them to neutralize the Romulan soldiers they encountered. Reaching the command center, the team planted explosives on the ship's control systems. But just as they were about to detonate the charges, they were discovered by Romulan security forces. A fierce firefight erupted, and the team found themselves pinned down. With time running out, Eugene made a split-second decision. He ordered his team to fall back, while he stayed behind to set off the explosives manually. The team protested, but Eugene was adamant. "This is our only chance," he said. "I'll hold them off. Go." Reluctantly, the team retreated, leaving Eugene behind. Alone in the command center, Eugene fought off the Romulan soldiers as he prepared to detonate the charges. As the Romulans closed in, he activated the explosives, sending a massive. Finally, they reached the facility's entrance, a massive reinforced structure guarded by an elite Romulan unit. The team knew that this was the final hurdle. Taking the facility would disable the planet's defenses, allowing the Coalition fleet to gain control of the skies. The battle at the entrance was intense, with both sides taking heavy casualties. But Marissa's leadership and the team's determination saw them through. After a grueling fight, they breached the entrance and stormed the facility. Inside, the team quickly located the control room, where they encountered the facility's commander, a high-ranking Romulan officer. The officer, realizing that the battle was lost, made a desperate attempt to destroy the defense grid before the Coalition could take control. Marissa acted swiftly, engaging the officer in a deadly hand-to-hand combat. The fight was brutal, but Marissa's determination and training gave her the edge. She disarmed the officer and subdued him, securing the control room. With the facility under Coalition control, Marissa's team quickly set to work disabling the defense grid. As the grid went offline, the Coalition fleet in orbit began to gain the upper hand, overwhelming the remaining Romulan ships and securing the skies above Romulus Prime. The fall of Romulus Prime marked the beginning of the end for the Romulan Empire. The Coalition forces, now in control of the planet's defenses, launched a coordinated assault on the remaining Romulan strongholds. The Empire, already weakened by years of war, could not withstand the Coalition's relentless advance. In the weeks that followed, the Romulan Empire collapsed. The Coalition forces liberated planet after planet, as the Romulans' control over their vast territory disintegrated. The oppressed peoples of the galaxy rose up, inspired by the Coalition's victories, and overthrew their Romulan oppressors. The war was finally over. The galaxy, once gripped by fear and tyranny, was now free. As the Coalition celebrated its hard-won victory, Marissa and her team reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. They had lost many along the way, but they had also gained a new sense of purpose and a deep bond forged in the fires of battle. Eugene's sacrifice was honored as a turning point in the war, and he was remembered as a hero who had given everything for the cause of freedom. His legacy lived on in the new era of peace and cooperation that emerged from the ashes of the Romulan Empire. The Coalition, now transformed into a new alliance of free worlds, began the work of rebuilding the galaxy. They vowed to create a future where no one would have to live under the shadow of oppression, and where the lessons of the war would never be forgotten. Marissa, now a respected leader in the new alliance, continued to serve, guiding the galaxy toward a brighter future. She knew that there would always be challenges ahead, but she was ready to face them, just as she had faced the trials of the war. The story of the Coalition's victory over the Romulan Empire became a legend, passed down through the generations as a testament to the power of unity, courage, and the indomitable human spirit. Shockwave through the ship. The Dreadnought's command systems were destroyed, and the ship was left adrift, its crew in disarray. Without the flagship to coordinate their efforts, the rest of the Romulan fleet fell into chaos. The Coalition forces seized the opportunity, launching a coordinated attack that decimated the remaining Romulan ships. On the planet's surface, the Romulan ground forces, now without support from their fleet, began to falter. The Coalition soldiers, inspired by the news of Eugene's sacrifice, launched a final counterattack that drove the Romulans from Talaris. The battle was won, but at a heavy cost. Eugene's team returned to the fleet, their hearts heavy with the loss of their leader. But they knew that his sacrifice had not been in vain. Thanks to Eugene, the Coalition had secured a decisive victory that would be remembered for generations. As the Coalition forces regrouped and tended to their wounded, the news of Eugene's heroism spread throughout the galaxy. He became a symbol of the rebellion's courage and determination, inspiring countless others to join the fight against the Romulan Empire. The Romulan Empire, now weakened and demoralized, was left reeling from the loss. The rebellion continued to grow, and the Coalition's forces gained strength with each passing day. The final battle for the galaxy was approaching, and the Romulans knew that their time was running out. The final stand. The victory at Talaris was a turning point in the war against the Romulan Empire, but it was clear to everyone that the conflict was far from over. The Empire, though weakened, still possessed vast resources and a powerful military. The Coalition, emboldened by their recent success, knew that they needed to press their advantage and strike at the heart of the Romulan Empire to end the war once and for all. The Coalition leaders gathered once again to plan their final assault. The target was the Romulan homeworld, Romulus Prime, a heavily fortified planet deep within the Empire's territory. Taking Romulus Prime would cripple the Romulan military and shatter the morale of their forces, effectively ending the war. General Xara spoke first, her voice resolute. Romulus Prime is the key to victory, but it's also the most dangerous target we've ever faced. Their defenses are formidable, and they will be expecting us. Commander Rilak nodded in agreement. We'll need to coordinate a massive, multi-pronged assault. Our fleet will engage the Romulan defenses in orbit, while our ground forces land on the planet to take out key installations. We must be prepared for heavy casualties. Eugene's former team, now led by Lieutenant Marissa Cole, was chosen to lead the ground assault. Marissa had proven herself to be a capable leader in the Battle of Talaris, and she was determined to see the mission through to the end. The memory of Eugene's sacrifice weighed heavily on her, but it also fueled her resolve. As the Coalition fleet prepared for the assault, Marissa briefed her team on the mission. "This is it," she said, her voice firm, but filled with emotion. "We're going to take the fight to the Romulans on their own turf. We've lost friends, we've lost leaders, but we can't let their sacrifices be in vain. We're going to finish what we started." The team nodded in agreement, their faces set with determination. They knew the risks, but they were ready to do whatever it took to bring the war to an end. The Coalition fleet launched its assault on Romulus Prime under the cover of darkness, using the planet's moons as a staging ground. The Romulan fleet, though significantly weakened, was still a formidable force, and they were prepared for a fierce defense. The battle in orbit was intense, with ships from both sides exchanging heavy fire. The Romulan defenses were concentrated around key orbital stations, which the Coalition fleet targeted with relentless precision. The Coalition ships weaved through the Romulan lines, striking at weak points and creating openings for the ground assault. Meanwhile, Marissa's team descended to the planet's surface in specially designed drop pods, landing in the heart of Romulus Prime's capital city. Their mission was to disable the planet's primary defense grid, which was controlled from a heavily guarded facility deep within the city. The streets of the capital were a war zone, with Coalition soldiers engaging Romulan troops in brutal close-quarters combat. Marissa led her team through the chaos, using their knowledge of the city's layout to navigate the treacherous urban landscape. As they approached the defense grid facility, they encountered fierce resistance. Romulan soldiers, determined to protect their homeworld, fought with a ferocity that the Coalition had rarely seen. But Marissa and her team pressed on, using their superior tactics and firepower to overcome the Romulan defenses. The defeat was a crushing blow to the Romulan Empire. Emperor Valerius, faced with the loss of his fleet and the growing rebellion, began to realize that his empire was on the brink of collapse. But for Eugene and the Coalition, the victory was a turning point. They had proven that the Romulans could be beaten, and they had shown the galaxy that unity and determination could overcome even the most powerful of foes. As the Coalition forces celebrated their hard-won victory, Eugene knew that the war was far from over. The Romulans were weakened, but they were still dangerous. The Coalition would need to stay united and continue to fight if they were to achieve ultimate victory. But for now, they had earned a moment of triumph. The galaxy had seen what humanity and its allies were capable of, and the spark of rebellion had grown into a blazing fire. And as long as that fire burned, there was hope for a future free from Romulan tyranny. The rebellion grows. The Coalition's victory at the Romulan shipyard was the catalyst that ignited revolts across the galaxy. As news of the Romulan defeat spread, systems that had long suffered under Imperial rule began to rise up, inspired by the Coalition's success. The flames of rebellion spread quickly, and soon the Romulan Empire was facing insurrections on multiple fronts. Eugene and his team, now regarded as heroes by the Coalition, returned to their base of operations to regroup and plan their next move. The shipyard, now under Coalition control, became a crucial hub for the Resistance. It was rapidly transformed into a fortress, with new ships being constructed and existing ones repaired to bolster the Coalition's fleet. In the wake of their victory, Eugene was summoned to a meeting of the Coalition's Leadership Council. The atmosphere in the council chamber was electric, filled with hope and determination. Representatives from various species had gathered to discuss the next phase of their campaign against the Romulan Empire. "We've struck a significant blow against the Romulans," began Commander Relak, the Zaldari representative. "But we must not become complacent. The Romulans are weakened, but they are still a formidable enemy." General Tsara, the Kelrian leader, nodded in agreement. "The rebellion is spreading, but it is still fragile. We need to support these uprisings and ensure that they succeed." Eugene listened as the council members debated their strategy. It was clear that the Coalition needed to act swiftly and decisively. The Romulans were regrouping, and it was only a matter of time before they launched another counterattack. The Coalition had to keep the momentum on their side. "We should focus on liberating key systems that are strategically important," Eugene suggested. "If we can take control of those, it will give us a significant advantage and further destabilize the Romulan Empire." The council members considered Eugene's proposal. After a brief discussion, they agreed that targeting key systems was the best course of action. The Coalition's forces would be divided into several fleets, each tasked with liberating a specific system. Eugene and his team would lead one of these fleets, aiming to free the planet Tellurus, a vital Romulan stronghold. Tellurus was a heavily fortified world, known for its vast natural resources and strategic location near the heart of the Romulan Empire. It was also home to a large population of Romulan dissidents and slaves who had long yearned for freedom. If the Coalition could liberate Tellurus, it would deal a major blow to the Empire and provide a significant boost to the rebellion. As Eugene and his team prepared for the mission, they knew that this would be their most dangerous operation yet. The Romulans would defend Tellurus with everything they had, and the Coalition would need to be at the top of their game to succeed. Before departing for Tellurus, Eugene addressed the Coalition forces that would accompany him. "We've proven that we can stand against the Romulan Empire," he said, his voice steady and confident. "But this mission is different. We're not just fighting to win a battle. We're fighting to liberate a world and its people. The stakes are higher and the risks are greater, but I believe in each and every one of you. Together, we will succeed." The fleet departed for Tellurus, slipping through the stars toward their target. As they approached the planet, they could see the Romulan defenses in place: massive orbital platforms, heavily armed warships, and a planetary shield that protected the surface from bombardment. Eugene and his team knew that a direct assault on Tellurus would be suicidal. Instead, they devised a plan to disable the planet's defenses from within. Using stolen Romulan codes, they would infiltrate the orbital platforms and take control of them, turning the Romulan defenses against their own fleet. Once the defenses were down, the Coalition forces would. Eugene looked around the room, seeing the determination in each of their faces. "This is the moment we've been preparing for. We hold this shipyard, and we send a message to the Romulans that their time is up." As the leaders dispersed to make final preparations, Eugene returned to his team. They had become like family to him, and he knew that they would be crucial in the upcoming battle. "We've been through a lot together," Eugene said, addressing his team. "But this is going to be our toughest fight yet. I need each of you at your best." "We're ready," Eugene replied Lara, his second in command. "We've got your back." The team shared a moment of camaraderie, knowing that the battle ahead would test them like never before. And then the Romulans arrived. The sky above the shipyard darkened as the Romulan fleet emerged from warp. Hundreds of warships, bristling with weapons, descended upon the shipyard. It was an overwhelming force, far greater than anything the Coalition had faced before. But the Coalition was ready. As the Romulan ships approached, the Coalition's defensive systems activated, and a barrage of energy beams and missiles lit up the sky. The battle began with a ferocity that shook the very fabric of space. Eugene and his team took to their stations, coordinating the defense. The Romulans attacked with precision, targeting key installations and attempting to breach the shipyard's defenses. But the Coalition fought back with equal determination, repelling wave after wave of Romulan assaults. The battle raged on for hours, with neither side willing to give an inch. The Romulan forces were relentless, but the Coalition held their ground. The shipyard's shields were pushed to their limits, and the Coalition's ships suffered heavy losses. But through it all, Eugene and his team continued to lead the defense, inspiring their allies to fight on. As the battle reached its peak, the Romulans launched a final, all-out assault. Their flagship, the Imperius, led the charge, its massive cannons unleashing a storm of destruction. The Imperius was a symbol of Romulan might, and its presence on the battlefield struck fear into the hearts of the Coalition forces. But Eugene was not intimidated. He knew that the Imperius was the key to the Romulan strategy. If they could take it down, the Romulan fleet would be thrown into disarray. "We need to hit the Imperius with everything we've got," Eugene ordered. "Focus all fire on their flagship." The Coalition forces rallied, concentrating their firepower on the Imperius. The Romulan flagship's shields were strong, but the combined might of the Coalition began to wear them down. Eugene's team, aboard their own ship, the Resolute, moved into position for a daring maneuver. They knew that the Imperius's shields were strongest at the front, so they planned to attack from below, targeting the ship's vulnerable underbelly. As the Resolute approached the Imperius, they came under heavy fire. The ship's hull shook with each hit, and alarms blared as damage reports flooded in. But Eugene remained focused. He knew that this was their chance to turn the tide of the battle. "Hold steady," Eugene commanded. "We're almost there." The Resolute closed in on the Imperius, slipping beneath its massive hull. The team launched a concentrated volley of torpedoes, targeting the ship's weak points. The explosion rocked the Imperius, and its shields flickered as they struggled to absorb the impact. "Direct hit," shouted Lara. "Their shields are down to 40%. Keep firing," Eugene ordered. The Resolute continued its assault, pounding the Imperius with everything it had. The Romulan flagship's shields failed, and the ship's hull began to crack under the pressure. Inside the Imperius, the Romulan commander, Admiral Varnuk, realized that his ship was in danger. He ordered a retreat, but it was too late. The Coalition forces, sensing victory, pressed the attack. The Imperius was hit by a final devastating volley, and with a massive explosion, the Romulan flagship was destroyed. The destruction of the Imperius sent shockwaves through the Romulan fleet. Without their flagship, the Romulan forces faltered. The Coalition seized the opportunity, launching a coordinated counterattack that overwhelmed the remaining Romulan ships. Within moments, the battle was over. The Romulan fleet, once a symbol of Imperial power, was shattered. The Coalition had won a decisive victory, and the shipyard remained in their hands. Land on the planet and begin the liberation. The plan was risky, but it was their best chance at success. Eugene's team, disguised as Romulan soldiers, boarded a shuttle and approached one of the orbital platforms. The codes worked, and they were granted access. Once inside, they moved quickly, disabling the Romulan guards and taking control of the platform systems. With the first platform under their control, the team activated its weapons and targeted the other platforms and Romulan ships in orbit. The element of surprise was on their side, and within minutes, the Romulan defenses were in disarray. The Coalition fleet, waiting for the signal, moved in to attack. The battle for Talaris was fierce, but the Coalition's plan worked flawlessly. The Romulan fleet, caught off guard by the betrayal of their own defenses, was quickly overwhelmed. With the orbital platforms neutralized, the Coalition forces descended to the planet's surface, engaging the Romulan ground forces in brutal combat. Eugene and his team led the charge, fighting their way through the streets of Talaris' capital city. The Romulans fought desperately to hold their ground, but the Coalition forces, fueled by the desire for liberation, pushed forward with relentless determination. As the battle raged, news of the Coalition's advance spread across the planet. The Romulan dissidents and slaves, inspired by the sight of their liberators, rose up in revolt. Armed with whatever weapons they could find, they joined the fight, turning the tide in the Coalition's favor. After hours of intense fighting, the Romulan forces were defeated. The planetary shield was deactivated, and Talaris was free. The Coalition had won another significant victory, and the liberation of Talaris sent shockwaves throughout the Romulan Empire. The people of Talaris, now free from Romulan oppression, welcomed the Coalition forces as heroes. Eugene and his team were celebrated for their bravery and leadership, and the success of the mission further solidified the Coalition's position in the galaxy. But even as they celebrated, Eugene knew that the war was far from over. The Romulan Empire was reeling, but it was not yet defeated. There were still many battles to be fought, and the Coalition would need to remain united and vigilant if they were to achieve ultimate victory. As the rebellion continued to grow, Eugene and his team prepared for the challenges ahead. They had come a long way, but the road to freedom was still fraught with danger. But with each victory, the dream of a galaxy free from Romulan tyranny came closer to reality. And as long as there were those willing to fight for that dream, the Coalition would continue to stand against the Empire until the day when the Romulan threat was finally vanquished. The Empire strikes back. The liberation of Talaris was a monumental victory for the Coalition, but it also marked the beginning of a new, more dangerous phase of the conflict. The Romulan Empire, humiliated and enraged by its defeat, was determined to crush the rebellion once and for all. The Empire's response was swift and brutal, as it unleashed the full might of its military in a desperate bid to regain control. Eugene and his team knew that the Romulans would not take the loss of Talaris lightly. As the Coalition forces regrouped on the liberated planet, they received intelligence that the Romulans were massing a massive fleet for a counteroffensive. The Coalition's leaders convened an emergency meeting to discuss their next move. Commander Relak, the Zaldari representative, opened the meeting with a grim report. Our spies within the Romulan Empire have confirmed that they are preparing to launch a full-scale assault on Talaris. Their fleet is vast, and they are pulling forces from across the Empire to crush us. General Xara, the Kelrian leader, nodded solemnly. The Romulans are desperate. They know that if they lose Talaris, it could inspire more rebellions across the galaxy. They cannot afford to let that happen. Eugene leaned forward, his expression serious. We can't afford to lose Talaris either. If the Romulans retake this planet, it will demoralize the entire Coalition. We need to make our stand here. The Coalition's leadership agreed that defending Talaris was critical. The planet was strategically important, and its liberation had become a symbol of hope for the galaxy's oppressed peoples. Losing it would be a devastating blow to the rebellion. But defending Talaris would not be easy. The Coalition's forces were outnumbered, and the Romulan fleet was formidable. The only chance the Coalition had was to outthink and outmaneuver the Romulans. We need to use the terrain to our advantage, Eugene suggested. Talaris has a dense asteroid field nearby. If we can lure the Romulan fleet into it, we can use the asteroids as cover and launch hit-and-run attacks. The awakening of humanity's wrath. In the year 2257, humanity had spread across the stars, establishing colonies in distant systems. But as the reach of human civilization expanded, so did the dangers lurking in the dark corners of the galaxy. The Romulans, a hostile alien race, had become a formidable enemy, launching brutal raids on human outposts without mercy. Veteran Space Marine Eugene Miller was on a routine patrol with his elite squad when they received a distress call. A remote human colony was under attack. Without hesitation, they flew their assault shuttle to the location, but they were too late. The colony was in ruins, with burnt corpses scattered across the ground. Men, women, and children alike. The Romulans had spared no one. As Eugene surveyed the devastation, a fierce resolve took hold of him. This was no longer just a mission, it was personal. The Romulans had awakened a force they couldn't comprehend, human rage, and Eugene was determined to unleash it upon them. He gathered his team, each a master of their craft. There was Jack Boomer Hawkins, a demolitions expert who could turn anything into a weapon, Nikolai Petro, a sniper with deadly precision, and Marcus Fists Johnson, a powerhouse in close combat. Together, they would strike back at the Romulans with everything they had. Their attacks were swift and devastating. They struck Romulan outposts, supply ships, and bases with precision and brutality, leaving no survivors. Whispers of their wrath spread across the colonies, and the galaxy began to fear the force of human vengeance. But their actions did not go unnoticed. The Romulan warlord, Sirius, enraged by the losses, sent his forces after Eugene's team. They were hunted across space, constantly under attack, yet they persevered. For Eugene, this was no longer about duty, it was about justice, and he would stop at nothing to see it through. The team's latest mission brought them to a heavily fortified Romulan base, a critical hub for their war efforts. If they could infiltrate it, they might learn of Sirius's plans and prevent a devastating attack on humanity's core worlds. The mission was perilous, but they had no choice. They had to succeed. As they fought their way through the base, Eugene discovered something chilling. Records of a massive Romulan armada poised to strike at the heart of humanity. Led by Sirius himself, this force was unlike anything they had faced before. The fate of millions rested on their shoulders. Eugene knew what had to be done. They would take the fight directly to Sirius. It was a near-suicide mission, but for the sake of humanity, for the memory of those lost, they would see it through. The wrath of humanity. The Romulans had underestimated the resolve of humanity. What they saw as a collection of weaker, less advanced beings had now become their worst nightmare. As Eugene and his team continued their guerrilla campaign, the galaxy began to tremble under the weight of their retribution. Every strike they made was precise, devastating, and served as a grim reminder that humans were not to be trifled with. The whispers of their exploits spread like wildfire. The once unknown band of soldiers had now become legends, and with each victory, their reputation grew. They were no longer just soldiers, they were symbols of human defiance and strength. Lord Sirius, enraged by the constant losses his fleet suffered, doubled down on his efforts to crush Eugene and his team. He sent wave after wave of his best troops to hunt them down, but each time, the humans slipped through their fingers like smoke. The Romulan forces, once so confident and unstoppable, were now being outmaneuvered and outgunned by a single team of humans who refused to give up. The galaxy watched in awe as the humans continued to defy the odds. Other alien races, who had long feared the Romulan Empire, began to take notice. They saw in humanity a spirit that could not be broken, a tenacity that refused to be extinguished. Eugene and his team knew they were running out of time. Their resources were dwindling, and the Romulans were closing in. They had one last shot to make a difference, a final, desperate mission that could change the course of the war. They had gathered intelligence on Sirius's location. He was aboard his flagship, the Avenger, planning a massive assault on Earth. If they could take out Sirius, they could cripple the Romulan leadership and give humanity a fighting chance. It was a suicide mission, but they had come too far to turn back now. Eugene gathered his team one last time. The grim determination on their faces mirrored his own. They had all lost something to the Romulans. Friends, family, their home. But they had gained something in return. An unbreakable bond forged in the fires of war. Together, they would make their final stand. The first step was to secure a foothold in Romulan territory. The Zaldari, with their advanced technology, had identified a key Romulan shipyard that was critical to the Empire's war efforts. If they could capture it, they would not only disrupt Romulan production, but also gain valuable resources for the Coalition. Eugene led the assault personally. The Coalition fleet, composed of ships from Earth, Zaldar, Kelria, and other allied races, approached the shipyard under the cover of a nearby nebula. The plan was to strike fast and hard, overwhelming the Romulan defenses before they could mount a proper response. As the fleet emerged from the nebula, the battle began. Romulan ships scrambled to defend the shipyard, but they were no match for the coordinated attack of the Coalition. Eugene's team, having boarded the shipyard, fought their way through the facility, planting charges and disabling key systems. The battle was fierce, but the Coalition forces were relentless. Eugene and his team reached the shipyard's command center, where they encountered stiff resistance. The Romulan commander, a brutal and cunning officer named Valis, had anticipated their arrival and prepared a trap. But Eugene had learned from his past encounters with the Romulans. He had anticipated the trap and had his own countermeasures in place. As Valis's forces closed in, Eugene triggered an EMP blast, disabling their weapons and allowing his team to strike. The battle in the command center was brutal and close quarters. Eugene and his team fought with everything they had, knowing that failure was not an option. In the end, it was Eugene who faced Valis in a final desperate duel. Valis was a skilled warrior, but Eugene fought with a fire born of necessity and the knowledge that so much depended on this moment. With a final decisive blow, Eugene brought Valis down, securing the shipyard for the Coalition. As the Romulan defenses crumbled, the Coalition fleet moved in, capturing the shipyard and its resources. The victory was a significant one, marking the first time the Romulans had lost a major facility to the rebels. It was a turning point in the war, showing the galaxy that the Romulan Empire was not invincible. The success of the mission bolstered the Coalition's morale. More races joined the fight, inspired by the humans' determination and leadership. The tide of the war was beginning to turn, and for the first time, there was a real chance of victory. But Eugene knew that the Romulans would not go down without a fight. The Empire still had vast resources and a powerful military, and they would do whatever it took to crush the rebellion. The Coalition had won a major battle, but the war was far from over. As Eugene and his team prepared for the next phase of the campaign, they were filled with a sense of purpose. They had come so far, and they would not stop until the Romulan Empire was defeated and the galaxy was free from its tyranny. The Romulan counterattack. The capture of the Romulan shipyard sent shockwaves throughout the Empire. For the first time in its long history, the Romulan Empire found itself on the defensive. The news of the Coalition's victory spread quickly, fueling the fires of rebellion across the galaxy. But the Romulans were not about to let their empire crumble without a fight. Emperor Valerius, enraged by the loss of the shipyard and the death of Commander Valis, ordered a full-scale counterattack. He summoned his most trusted generals and devised a plan to strike back at the Coalition with overwhelming force. The Romulans would reclaim the shipyard and crush the rebellion once and for all. Eugene and his team knew that the Romulans would not sit idly by. They anticipated a counterattack and began fortifying their position at the shipyard. The Coalition forces worked tirelessly, setting up defensive perimeters, upgrading their shields, and preparing for the inevitable onslaught. The tension was palpable. Everyone knew that this battle could determine the fate of the war. If the Romulans succeeded in recapturing the shipyard, it would be a devastating blow to the Coalition. But if the Coalition could hold their ground, It would be a major step toward ultimate victory. As the coalition forces prepared for the battle, Eugene held a meeting with the leaders of the allied races. He knew that they needed to present a united front, and he wanted to ensure that everyone was on the same page. "We've come a long way," Eugene began, addressing the group. "But the fight is far from over. The Romulans will come at us with everything they have. We need to be ready." The Zaldari representative, Commander Relak, nodded. "Our forces are prepared. We've made significant upgrades to our defensive systems and are ready to repel any attack." The Kelrian leader, General Xara, added, "Our warriors are eager for battle. We will not let the Romulans reclaim this shipyard." They boarded their stolen Romulan shuttle and set a course for the Avenger. The journey was tense, every second filled with the possibility of discovery. But they made it through the enemy lines undetected, slipping into the heart of the Romulan fleet like a phantom. As they approached the Avenger, Eugene's thoughts turned to Earth. He thought of the people he was fighting for, the children who played in the parks, the families who sat down to dinner each night, unaware of the war raging above their heads. He would not let them down. The shuttle docked with the Avenger, and the team moved quickly, knowing they had only minutes before they were discovered. Boomer set charges on the ship's main reactor, while Fists and Nikolai took out the guards patrolling the corridors. They moved like shadows, swift and silent, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. Eugene felt a cold fury settle over him. He leveled his weapon at Sirius, his voice steady. "Not if we have anything to say about it." The battle that followed was fierce and brutal. Eugene's team fought with everything they had, each one driven by the desire to protect their home. The Romulans fought back with equal ferocity, but they were no match for the humans' determination. In the end, it was Eugene who stood over Sirius, his weapon trained on the defeated warlord. Sirius glared up at him, his eyes burning with hatred. "This isn't over, human. Even if you kill me, the Romulan Empire will never stop." Eugene didn't hesitate. "We'll see about that." With a final, decisive shot, he ended Sirius's reign of terror. The team quickly planted the last of their charges and made their escape. As they fled the Avenger, the ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, taking Sirius's fleet with it. They watched the explosion from the safety of their shuttle, the silence in the cockpit heavy with the weight of their victory. They had done it. They had struck a blow that would echo through the galaxy, giving humanity the hope it so desperately needed. But even as they celebrated, they knew the fight was far from over. The Romulans would come back, and when they did, humanity would be ready. As they set a course for home, Eugene allowed himself a small smile. They had made their stand, and they had won. But more importantly, they had shown the galaxy what humans were truly capable of. And that was just the beginning. The destruction of the Avenger sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The death of Lord Sirius, a symbol of Romulan dominance, was a blow from which the Empire would struggle to recover. But it was more than just a victory for Eugene and his team. It was a spark that ignited the fire of rebellion across the galaxy. On Earth, news of the victory spread quickly. The people, once gripped by fear, now found hope. They had seen their champions strike a devastating blow against an enemy that seemed invincible. For the first time in years, there was a sense of unity, a collective resolve to stand together against the Romulan threat. World leaders, previously divided by politics and mistrust, began to work together. They understood that the only way to ensure humanity's survival was through cooperation. Nations pooled their resources, sharing technology and intelligence to bolster Earth's defenses. The planet became a fortress, ready to repel any attack. But Earth was not alone in its fight. Across the galaxy, oppressed races who had long suffered under Romulan rule saw the humans' victory as a beacon of hope. The Zaldari, a species known for their technological prowess, but long enslaved by the Romulans, were the first to rise. They sabotaged Romulan supply lines, disrupting the flow of resources and weakening the Empire's grip on its territories. Finally, they reached the bridge. Sirius was there, surrounded by his top officers. He turned as they entered, a snarl on his lips. "You're too late, humans. The assault on Earth has already begun. Your world will burn." The Kelrians, a warrior race forced into servitude, also joined the fight. Inspired by the humans' courage, they launched a series of guerrilla attacks on Romulan outposts, crippling their military operations. The rebellion spread like wildfire, and soon the Romulan Empire found itself fighting battles on multiple fronts. Eugene and his team, now celebrated as heroes, knew that their mission was far from over. The destruction of the Avenger had bought Earth some time, but the Romulans would not give up so easily. They would regroup, and when they did, they would come back stronger than ever. But Eugene had a plan. With the help of Earth's newly formed alliance, he began to organize a coalition of rebel forces from across the galaxy. The goal was simple: take the fight to the Romulans and dismantle their empire piece by piece. It was a daunting task, but Eugene was determined. He had seen the strength of humanity and knew that, united, they could achieve the impossible.